And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection. I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Restorative justice views crime more than just breaking the law. It also causes harm to people, relationships, and the community. So a just response must address those harms as well as the wrongdoing. We begin today's Open Connection with an overview of restorative justice.
This is Jane. One morning, she wakes up to realize that her car has been broken into. She's immediately angry, frustrated, and a bit scared. She doesn't know if anything was taken and wonders what to do now. She decides to call the police. This is Tyler and Sarah. They entered Jane's unlocked car, causing some damages and taking a handful of change. Tyler and Sarah got caught by the RCMP. Both 16 and first-time offenders, they will be charged with mischief under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. If found guilty, they could face challenges like getting a job, travel, further education, or worse, further adding to the difficulties to what they are already facing in their life. Recently, a close friend of theirs died in a car accident. They had no idea how to deal with this. On the surface, Jane seems content knowing they are being punished and are now part of the criminal justice system. But she also has the feeling something is missing. There's no sense of closure. Unfortunately, the story of Jane, Tyler, and Sarah is fairly common. In their case, was justice served? Did you know it is estimated the cost of a youth caught up in the criminal justice system from 12 to 17 years of age is over $800,000 per person? And there is another way. Restorative justice, where a meaningful intervention could cost as little as $1,000 per referral. Restorative justice is a community-based service and a non-court alternative. Restorative justice provides a safe and supportive place for those seeking to address the impacts of this wrongdoing, with a focus on meeting the needs of Jane and holding Tyler and Sarah accountable. Restorative justice has 3 key questions. What happened? How are people affected? What can be done to repair the harm? So, how does restorative justice work? The RCMP could make a referral to restorative justice after Tyler and Sarah admit to the wrongdoing with the support of their guardians, and Jane agrees to the referral. A restorative justice team will meet with all parties separately to get answers to the key questions and many others. All persons served in this referral will also learn how restorative justice works. In a restorative justice circle, Jane will hear from Tyler and Sarah what happened that night. Jane will share how this has affected her directly, as well as her family and the neighbors. Supporters, guardians, and the RCMP will also share the impacts of this wrongdoing. In the circle, Tyler and Sarah will become aware of the ripple effect their actions had on Jane, everyone else, and the community. Through a victim-centered approach, Jane will share first what needs to be done to repair the harm. Tyler, Sarah, and everyone else in the circle will be involved in answering this question and reaching an agreement. Tyler and Sarah agree to write a letter of apology to Jane, give a verbal apology to the RCMP, attend counseling, and pay for damages to Jane's car. Fulfilling this agreement will go a long way in repairing the harm. Tyler and Sarah's name will stay in the RCMP database for a period of time, although they will not have a criminal record. Since January 2006, restorative justice has reached over 350 agreements to repair the harm involving more than 2,000 persons served. We envision North Okanagan communities strengthened through restorative justice services, principles, and practices. Restorative justice benefits the community by meeting the needs of the victim, holding offenders accountable, strengthening family and social bonds, returning a sense of safety, and restoring balance. BC community-based restorative justice programs and services are underfunded and under-resourced. And without sustainable funding, restorative justice services have a limited capacity to enhance their services. Restorative justice is vital to the community, and with support from funders, could help more victims and hold more offenders accountable. Does your community have a restorative justice program or access to restorative justice services? You can help. Learn about restorative justice, talk to your politicians, attend a restorative justice presentation, and make a donation.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Thank you for staying with us. For the past 4 years, she's been living the dream. When she moved here with her daughter 6 years ago, Tracy Davidson was looking for a job where she could make a difference. Operating 38 nonprofit community programs with an average of 175 volunteers a year at Volunteer Terrace. Let us return to the conversation with Tracy Davidson.
This is actually our 30th year that we've been around, so we're hoping that at some point we'll actually be able to have some sort of a party to celebrate that fact. But we started out originally primarily having seniors programs. So we have the Better at Home program for seniors. That's a United Way funded program. We have the Better at Home, Helping Handyman program, and that is we get that funding through Northern Health. So as a volunteer center, part of our job, mine specifically now, is recruiting volunteers for different agencies. Under the volunteer programs, we have the Terrace Restorative Justice Program, which is what we're here to talk about a little bit today. And we also have our YVC, Youth Volunteer Corps. And that's one of the programs that we're also sort of hoping to get up and running again after in the next couple of months or so.
Now, you mentioned restorative justice. Could you tell me about why it is so important that it falls underneath your program?
The original reason why I took it is because my degree is in human resource management. So it seemed like it was a natural fit, and it is a natural fit. I've rapidly learned that some of those tasks are things I do on a daily basis. But restorative justice, even this about 3 weeks ago, we had training of 20 facilitators. We have another 9 facilitators who have varying degrees of expertise as well. We also have people who train people become facilitators here in town as well. So really, the basis of restorative justice can be used at any age. It's really the vocabulary maybe that you use that changes a little bit for younger people. I know in the US, some of the circles are used in young ages, kindergarten, so age 4 or 5. The school programs will be starting the training in April for teachers. So there'll be the training, 2 days of training for youth, so very younger age groups for teachers and that age group. And it'll be on a Pro D Day, I think, coming up in April. And then there'll be one for for teachers in the older grades. And those also have the ability to teach students, so older students, how to actually do their own from their own circles, which is really great.
Now, we hear the word restorative justice. When you were in the training, did you participate in like a restorative justice kind of role play?
I did. We did the role play, but once we finished the role play and we got our first couple of files, the role play is one thing, but to actually sit in a circle are quite different. And our last training we did over Zoom, so you're getting a different experience then again. And our program is also in Kitimat, so we're looking at some of the files moving forward, and particularly in this time means we will be doing some Zoom. which is, we'll see how that works. It is working well for other groups. And we'll see Lower Mainland, Fraser Valley, they do work in the prisons, and they've been very successful there. And again, some of them are done by Zoom and some are not.
And Tracy, is there anything I might have missed that you would like to add?
No, I think that anybody to recognize that restorative justice is a form of justice or community justice. We use loosely the term victim and offender, but that's not language we like to use. Lots of times it's historical that what we're seeing historical, and when I say historical, I mean maybe kids that have been having problems since kindergarten, right through elementary school into high school. And this is giving some of those youth an ability to maybe nip that in the bud prior to anything else. Zafia, who will be doing the training for our teachers, has worked in many of the school districts and offering these services. And the tools that are going to be used are overwhelming. But we also work with DFO, Department of Fisheries and Oceans. We have done files for conservation officers. Both of those organizations also have restorative justice practitioners as well. We have done files for ICBC. We've got such an open way to help so many different people in so many different ways.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. Restorative justice is an approach that involves rethinking our definition of crime and our responses to it. Restorative justice is called a paradigm or a lens from which one may view the world. Let us return to the conversation with Terry Mayer.
The Restorative Justice Group here in town, it's been around for a long time, took a bit of a break and then came back, but it is an alternative way to deal with the harms that happen when folks make poor choices. It basically came about mostly in New Zealand. They had to deal with a youth issue with the Maori youth, and traditionally they gathered in circles and they shared story and they tried to repair those harms together. And so in New Zealand it took off, went to Australia, again, huge following in Australia, people just wanting to bring community together, rather than sending folks into the criminal justice system, where often the victim loses a voice and the folks who have done harm don't necessarily learn or have the opportunity to learn from their harms. They go into the system and sometimes come out better criminals, a little more hardened, rather than catching them at a young age and helping them make wiser, more conscientious decisions, knowing that they are part of a wider community. And folks from Canada went down. There was a Quaker and Methodist movement back east. They went down. And really, I mean, the way of the circle to repair the harms is not something new. Our First Peoples have been doing this on Turtle Island for a very long time, partly because, you get a small village or community. Everybody has a role. Everybody has an important gift to offer to that community. And if someone makes a mistake, if someone makes a poor choice, depending on what that choice is, excluding them, pushing them out, punishing them in such a way could also harm the village, right? If they have gifts to bring to that community. And so rather than nobody learning anything, you gather together, you share your stories, and that's the big piece, sharing stories. The offender gets to hear how their actions have not just affected maybe an individual or a family, but an entire community. And then that victim, in sharing that, because in the criminal justice system, it's taken away. The situation becomes against the state, and the voice of the victim isn't heard. So restorative justice is absolutely a gift to those folks who want to have a chance to say, this is how you impacted my life. And their supporters get that chance. And then the offenders get to hear about their own supporters and how they have been impacted by their actions. It's a ripple effect. And what I love about restorative justice, if it's done well and if people are really engaged, there is a potential for healing on all levels, a potential for learning on all levels. And the accountability is community-wide. I used to drive past the Justice Institute, and I did some chaplaincy training at the BC Women's Institution, Correctional Institution, as a chaplain in training. And I was hearing little bits about restorative justice, and Justice Institute teaches. And I was already working and going to university, but it was just one of these things at the back of my mind until I was up here working and heard about Simon Fraser University having an online 1-year accreditation for restorative justice. And so I did that right around the same time I discovered the group here in town and did training to be a facilitator. And since then, we've done peacemaking circle training, we've done victim offender conferencing training, and then even learned how to train the trainers.
Have you participated in a restorative justice talking circle, and what did you walk away with after?
In some ways, I think restorative justice is a misnomer. I prefer to call it a transformative justice program, because restoration talks about going back to fixing things the way they were, but often it's because of the way things are or the way they were that brought us to this place of brokenness. And so in the restorative justice process, the transformative justice process, by sharing story and how harms have impacted and how together we can come to an agreement on how to fix those harms, there is potential for transformation. People kind of getting that, right, this is how I had no idea that this one action would impact this many people or even my own self. You know, some people think, oh, well, they go into restorative justice to avoid going to court. For those folks who really are honestly engaged in what's going on and the process followed the way that it's meant to be followed, they may go in hoping not to get a criminal record, but often, like 99% of the time, they come out going, wow, okay, I've learned something here. And overall, that's way better for the community than to ship somebody off and tell them that they're not good enough or they're wrong for who they are. Here's a chance to make amends and come back into community.
And Terry, is there anything I might have missed that you would like to add?
I don't know. It's a huge thing, and it's a gift. I think it's great for community to be engaged. It doesn't matter if it's just even for the victims. Just their ability to share their story is so powerful and impactful. And it really is a gift. It's hard to hear. It is hard to hear how your actions, your choices, your situation may have harmed other folks, especially harmed the ripple effect, harmed the people that we love or that we respect. But overall, that's that tough learning. Somebody recently called, the lessons that we learn, those hard lessons, she called them blessings, like blessings, but lessons. So that's kind of stuck with me. I thought that was kind of neat.
Okay, and I hit.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Dan Kasperson holds close the value that it takes a community to raise a child. He also has been influenced by the need to build up strong youth and families to support a thriving community. In this final segment of Open Connection, Dan shares why he took on the role of program coordinator.
Well, the reason that I think I came on and what we talked to Tracy about is my background is in sports and athletics, and I played at a high level and I coach at a high level all over the world. But I'm more of a coach. So what I want to do is get everybody on this team, this volunteer team of about 20 great volunteers. We have a couple of coordinators. I want to get them ready and trained and ready to do the restorative justice forums. So my job is to then go out and increase the forums that we get, the referrals. Because if I have all these trained staff, now I need to go out and put them in a position to be able to, decrease or heal some of the harm in the community. So now I got to go out and make RCMP connections, kind of strengthen those in Kitimat here in Terrace, go to the different agencies. So my job is to get more referrals, help our team get trained, and then, keep us on the straight and narrow. My dad owned a sporting goods store when I was younger back in Saskatchewan, and it was interesting. He actually used to use restorative justice before it was sort of a bigger thing. In the late 90s, I remember my dad getting broken into 3 or 4 times in 1 year. And I said to him, "Are you going to press charges?" And he said, "No, I am not going to press charges against," it was young people. And he said, I want them to bring their parents in, the RCMP or the police, and I want to talk to them and just let them know what this has done to affect me. I don't want it to be on their record and be able to say, understand why they did it, how it affected him." And I was like, I wasn't at the time, I was like, "I don't know, Dad, I think I would have thrown the book at him." But now I understand, it kind of all comes back to roost. My dad was one of those guys. He's like, it was, simple thefts and a break in and enter, but he just, damaged his property, cost him money. But he's like, "Dan, this is something that we can't have people going to jail or having a record for, like, let's understand why. And it'll just wreck the community more." So I was like, wow. So I've already seen it. And so I was already participating. Plus with sports, I think you would probably know in sports, restorative justice is kind of the way you handle internal conflict. So when teammates get together, you have a captain. And if teammates are having a beef, you kind of all sit down, you have a talk, because otherwise you wouldn't be able to perform at a high level if people are at each other and having these little side issues, right? We have restorative justice contacts, Kitimat, Terrace. I want them to then say, "Okay, can we talk to your officers about referring?" Because that's part of one of the things that the RCMP now has it in their mandate to try to also refer some of these lesser cases so that it doesn't, it helps on time, saving on the court, but it also helps heal more harm in the community by getting these sides. So my job is to go out, meet with them, strengthen the relationship, and then go to places like Kermode Friendship Center and Kassan and some of these great agencies and Skeena Diversity and be able to say, what is it that we can do to help restore some of the things that are happening in your area? So my job now is to get our trained facilitators into a forum so that we can help heal. And then we have a schools program coming up. So we're trying to build it we got a grant from CN. I wanted to make a big note that CN gave us a huge $20,000 grant so that we could go into the schools and start preparing teachers and the students to learn about how to handle things restoratively. And that way we can start to go from the kids all the way up through to adults. So that's coming up here in April and May. Terrace Restorative Justice is about 2 people coming together when a harm has been created between people, a group, a community, and that what we have is solutions to be able to ease the harm, try to understand the harm, and see if we can heal the harm. So both parties, the victim, what we call, or the person that was harmed and the person that caused harm, have to agree that they want to come to this.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but his connection from his mind to his heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.